Do you feel like every time you make a payment to your health or life insurance policy, you're making a payment to the multi-billion-dollar industry and you feel like you've been totally smacked down? SmackDown wrestling. Anyway, there are better options. Deal with an independent broker, someone who does the shopping just for you. Timmy Hutson has been in the business for 4 years, and he is certified for health, Medicare, life, and even annuities. So give Timmy Hutson a call anytime at 770-361-8271. Once again, 770-361-8272. There are not many things in life that are guaranteed, except for Timmy Hutson will treat you just like family, no matter if you need health, Medicare, life, or even annuities. And then Alex G's and David Fine's retro wrestling recap and look back at Wrestle War 89 begins now. Welcome into Retro Wrestling Rewind, episode number 11. Yeah, that's right, folks. We got to episode number 11. As always, I am one half of the greatest podcast tag team champions of the world. I am David Fine, alongside the real man from Long Island, the real Long Island IZ, Alex G. How the hell are you doing on this Wrestle War 89 edition of Retro Wrestling Rewind?
This is going to be the greatest show in the history of podcasting history. You know why? Because I've already taken off my pants.
Well, that is a visual that hey folks, you know what?
We're looking at cameras soon.
Hey folks, if you log on to patreon.com/Retro Wrestling Rewind.
I'm selling underwear.
Trust me, folks, there is going to be a tier. Let me just kind of give you a preview if you haven't logged on there. Our first tier is the Western States Heritage Champion tier. It's for $1. You get the old, hey, thanks for tuning in.
We'll give you a shout out on the show.
Well, we'll give you a shout out, and if you slide some extra
Twitter,
do-re-mi in there, in the old DMs, as they say, and the old bank account, we may give you some more. But that's beside the point. Then we have the World TV title level. It's $5 or more a month. You get to pick. You get an extra Patreon show. You get an extra show. Stuff that you don't hear on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, online
at rated version.
At RetroWrestlingRewind.com. And for the next level is the national heavyweight title level. And that's, you get you know what? I'm actually going to bring up the official Patreon page. I don't want to get this wrong, but I know you have, while I pull this up, you have a rant that you kind of want to go on that could last an hour, 2 hours on Wrestle War 89. I mean,
my wife calls me the 60-minute man, so it's all true.
Is it true? Is it damn true?
It's damn true. I just want to talk about, I want to kind of set the scene here for the NWA WCW 1989 and where do we stand in terms of Wrestle War 89. Again, guys, this is the final match of the great Rick Steamboat versus Ric Flair trilogy of matches. This is the final countdown. And if you guys watch the original broadcast version, they do a music video using the song by Europe called Final Countdown. It's one of my favorite all-time wrestling-related videos. So, check it out on YouTube. It's fantastic. It's awesome. It kind of sets the scene for this rivalry and what we have looking forward in terms of this match. Again, going from late 1988 to early 1989, again, TBS purchases Jim Crockett Promotions and they reform it to World Championship Wrestling. Dusty Rhodes gets fired as Booker. Jim Crockett Jr. books for a little bit. They bring in Jim Herd in as the president of WCW. They finally find a new booker in George Scott. Now, George Scott was instrumental in the 70s boom of Jim Crockett Promotions. He was instrumental of keeping Vince McMahon Jr. sane during the expansion era. A lot of people do credit him for a lot of the success of the early WWF, especially in 84 and 85. again, Vince was doing the booking. He wasn't necessarily a booker in WWF. He was more like, you would say, a vice president. He was more in charge of the wrestling operations, the business of professional wrestling, not the creative of professional wrestling. And guys, those are two different things. And if you listen to the NWA 1984 project, we talk about the difference between the business of wrestling and the booking of wrestling, or the creative of wrestling. They do intertwine at times, but there are two different things. Clearly, Vince is in charge of creative. He's getting input from his guys, including George Scott. Now, George Scott does have some unsuccessful turns, would be, in world class. I think he went in for Houston for a little bit, but then he ends up in WCW, and it's a good pickup, you would think. This guy has a lot of experience. There's not a lot of guys out there at this time that you can bring in to be bookers. You're not bringing in Dory Funk Jr., you're not bringing in Eddie Gilbert, not for a company at this size in 1989. So there's not a whole lot of guys you can get. And he's a good pickup to get for WCW, or as they thought. Now, his biggest hang-up was that he wasn't really keen on pay-per-view or the clashes because he felt that they took away from the house shows. So, again, early 89 TV is not the greatest, and he didn't promote the clashes. And it kind of comes to a head at the show Raging Cajun. It's the second match of the Flair Steamboat trilogy, where they just didn't promote it at all. And they draw like no one in the Superdome. Like, it's really, really bad. It costs George Scott his job, and then after that, they go right into the booking committees, head up mostly by Ric Flair and Jim Ross. But George Scott is an interesting guy overall, and that's basically where we stand in terms of WCW 1989. Again, we still have Flair and Steamboat on top, which is great to see. And we get this weird Oak Ridge Boys concert in the middle of this thing. You would assume that Dusty is booking this, because Dusty loved to do the concerts with the bashes, the untelevised bashes. But 30 minutes of the Oak Ridge Boys on pay-per-view is not necessarily a good thing. It's actually quite awful. And the production was really crappy. In addition to that, do not forget that we're in the middle of the WCW-WWF war. And guess who ran the National Medicinal Auditorium the night before? Was a WWF. And they ran late on purpose. So they ran all their matches went long to kind of give WCW a hard time and for them to set up for their show. So I'm thinking that the reason why the Oak Ridge Boys concert sucks, other than them being the Oak Ridge Boys, was the production. If you listen to that concert, if you can find it, because obviously it's not on the WWE Network, it's not on the Turner Home Entertainment release, it's on the Raw pay-per-view version. So that concert sounded really crappy. Like, you couldn't understand what anyone was saying. Very, very similar to the WWE Evolution pay-per-view. We could not hear that band that played at the beginning of that show at all live.
Yeah, and you were there live.
I was there. We're there. So me and my family were there, and we could, I don't even know. I thought it was Van Hammer in the ring. I couldn't even tell.
Oh God, maybe it was that Sam Houston.
Sam Houston's not a rock star either.
And you know who a rock star is? The Freebirds.
Don't say Michael Hayes.
Speaking of Michael Hayes, he'll be on the show.
You know, wait. You got to this particular version, the WWE version of the show, they dub out Freebird on this.
Yeah, and they put on Bad Street USA.
Bad Street. It sounds like shit because it's like, and that was a big deal. Like, Michael Hayes, we'll talk about during the match. He's going to do it on his own. He's coming out to Freebird, and actually they cut the commentary mentioning that they're using Freebird as his entrance music.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that in the intro, which when Michael Hayes was coming out, the great Gary Michael Capetta, who is actually I interviewed, he's going to be on the show later on in a separate episode, and longer.
We love you, GMC,
and longer on as they would say the patron, patreon.com/retro wrestling rewind. If you
I don't drink tequila. Because tequila makes me take off all my clothes.
Yes. And please, folks, whatever you do, give us money so he will not take off his clothes. If it's for anything else.
It's like stripping in reverse.
Yes, it's like a strip club I went to one time where they They were not the loveliest ladies in the world. And
You're talking about strip clubs in Atlanta? I heard that was the gold standard of strip clubs of the United States.
No, went to a strip club called the Claremont Lounge, and it was where, as they would say, the old strippers go to die. And I swore there was a stripper there that was pregnant, but she could have just been fat. But that's neither here nor there. I was giving them money to put their clothes back on, and you usually don't do that at a strip club. But that's neither here nor there. But talking about giving us money, and you want us to give you a shout out, get an extra bonus show. If you're the national heavyweight champion on the old Patron, at this level you get to pick a show. Yeah, that's right, folks. You get to email us in and say, hey, we want to cover the world's shittiest pay-per-view.
Uncensored 95.
That covers Sam Houston. Or if you want to, if you're a big Sam Houston mark, which I don't even think Sam Houston's parents were Sam Houston marks.
Only Baby Doll. Only Baby Doll.
And Alex G, but that's neither here nor there. If you want us to cover Sam Houston, become a national heavyweight champion. You get that in the monthly Patreon exclusive show, which we'll put up a little survey online. Plus, you also get this is worth the $25 or more a month on the national heavyweight title tier. You get a heartfelt thanks from Alex G and David Fine. And the final, but the greatest level that we have is the world champion. It's $50 or more. Hey, if you got $50 or more that you want to throw towards Alex G and David Fine, then you know what? At this level, you get to join the show every 30 days like a real world champion. Because remember back in the day, Alex G, when the champion actually had to defend his title every 30 days, unlike Brock fucking Lesnar, who we won't see the Universal title till maybe WrestleMania in 2019. I don't know, maybe 2020 if he's still the champion. You get to be on the show every 30 days if you want to. Get a free t-shirt. Actually, it won't be free because you're giving us $50 a month, but that's neither here nor there. And at this level, you get to pick a show. You get the monthly Patreon exclusive. And like I said, the thing that's worth the $50 a month, you get a heartfelt thank you. Good job from Alex G and David Fine.
You got a pat on the back there.
A pat on the old backside, and you get to give us money where Alex G will not keep on taking off his clothes. But yeah, I mean, I was talking to Gary Michael Capetta just earlier here in the day. It's Wednesday, and he has a show coming up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the 23rd, the day after Thanksgiving. Just click on the show notes in that interview to get tickets. If I could be there, if it wasn't the day after Christmas, I was trying to actually get booked on working WrestleCade to be the ring announcer, but just things didn't work out. So got to spend time with the family, Hey, priorities. But speaking
real life often gets in the way.
God, I hate real life sometimes.
I know.
No, I love real life. But speaking of things that are better than the Oak Ridge Boys, what were your thoughts on the opening match in Wrestle War 89? It was supposed to be the Junkyard Dog taking on the Great Muta with Gary Hart. But why didn't he show up? I mean, did he just no-show the show, or was there actually?
It's just JYD. I mean, he does it all the time. JYD is not the best. Obviously, he was going to do a job in 3 minutes to Muta. They kind of set up Muta for bigger and better things. So he's like, nope, I'm not coming.
He doesn't no-show anymore, but that's neither here nor there.
Ooh, he may not. He's never coming back.
He is never coming back. I mean,
can I sit here and talk about how awesome the Great Muta is? Because he is fantastic. He's one of probably my top 5 wrestlers of all time. He's just awesome, and especially at this time. This is before his knees got bad and he started losing his hair. He looks young and he's spry and he has the mist. He's with Gary Hart. He did the moonsault. He landed on his feet and then went into a drop kick. That's a fantastic spot. He beat the hell out of Doug Gilbert, who technically is not even working for WCW at the time. I guess he was just there visiting Eddie, and he's like, I need you to work the opening match.
I mean, he
as a good worker, he always had his gear, right?
Yeah, I mean, a buddy of mine that I know that worked.
I love Doug Gilbert, by the way. He's fabulous.
You're really a Doug Gilbert fan?
I do. Dark Patriot all the way. Nightmare Freddy. Yep, he's my man.
You know who? I mean, I was I mean, God rest his soul. I waited.
Didn't he call Jerry Lawler a child molester on TV? I'm pretty sure he did. That's ridiculous.
I mean, trust me, it's not the worst thing that wrestlers have said. I mean, didn't
about
Dr.
Jerry Lawler, yeah.
About who was it? Dr. Dave Schultz? No, what's this?
No, Dr. D. David Schultz said that Jerry Lawler had AIDS on TV.
Yeah, that's another thing that we're going to put up on the Patreon.
I want the Retro Wrestling Rewind interview with Dr. D. David Schultz so bad.
Hey, I mean, I'm reaching out to all my wrestling friends, and
he has a book that just came out too.
I mean, everybody seems to have a book. I mean, did you know that? Did you
books
know
and podcasts?
Yeah, did you know that that Gary Michael Capetta wrote a screenplay for a movie, a wrestling movie? It was
really.
If you would like to know exactly what it's called and what it was about, you have to listen to the interview, which is online right now on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, on RetroWrestlingRewind.com. It's on all the social medias and social podcast platforms. But I mean, going back to before this Doug Gilbert match versus the Great Muta, that's when they had the fucking Oak Ridge Boys singing the national anthem, Star Spangled Banner, one of those things. That quality was just terrible. It was
bad.
I mean, it was.
And I'm thinking maybe the late prep for this show, because the WWE ran long on purpose, maybe affected that. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I'm just kind of speculating here, but that could have had an effect.
I mean, it could have been. Going on from that 3-minute match of Great Muta versus Doug Gilbert. Of course, Eddie Gilbert runs out there and he's with his brother at the end. They, kind of have some not words.
I always thought as a kid, remember, trying to, having this show in my memory, I always thought that Eddie Gilbert threw fire at Muta and missed and hit Doug on their show, but that wasn't this show. I don't think that ever actually happened.
I'm sure it did happen sometime.
Because Eddie liked to throw the fire like Lawler. So
yeah, I mean, I love it when I think you said last week on the show that when people go into their business for themselves, throwing the old fireball. So it's and speaking of a guy that I don't know should have fire towards him, the great Ranger Ross taking on Hacksaw Butch Reed. Your thoughts on?
I love Butch Reed. I thought in 1984 he could have been one of the top contenders for the NWA World Title. That's how highly I think of him. He has great look. His work is stiff and it's snug. And if you only watch Butch Reed in WWF or in WCW, take some time out and watch him Butch Reed in Mid-South. He is fantastic. Ranger Ross, although a decent worker, not so much, not fantastic.
You're not a fan of Ranger Ross? I mean,
I don't know. I think by 1989, the Corporal Kirshner or Sergeant Slaughter kind of gimmicks, the military gimmicks, are kind of lame here.
Yeah,
and especially with the WCW production behind it too. It's just lame all around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the great. I wouldn't say great. I think he was in jail for a minute. I don't think
he robbed the bank.
I mean, according to the old Wikipedia, he's not in jail anymore. So it's.
I hope he doesn't. Do this.
Huh?
I love you, Ranger Ross. Please do not.
You are such a. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm watching the.
I want to see Joey Janela versus Ranger Ross at the next Joey Janela Spring Break.
Well, I mean, that may be impossible because didn't Joey Janela hurt himself? He's out for a bit.
He's gonna be out for a while.
He's out for a while.
But I don't think you don't think he has to have whatever. I think it's a knee injury, perhaps. I forget.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to be 100% to face Ranger Ross. Okay, at the very least, can we have Joey Janela versus Van Hammer?
Oh God, Van Hammer, Van freaking Hammer. Oh God, I'm playing back.
He trains the Briscoe brothers, not that Briscoe brothers, but the Briscoe brothers from Ring of Honor.
Sorry, I'm just watching the old network pay-per-view Wrestle War '89. It's like it's Ric Flair back then. He didn't know what was coming up, getting the old kibosh from the great Terry Funk. But we'll talk about that later on in the program. You're a big fan of fan of the Ric Flair getting his handed to him by
that pile driver looked legit, and and the next angle they did that almost got him thrown off of TBS, where where Terry Funk tries to murder him with a plastic bag. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And you know what's fantastic? I'm gonna do the intro for your favorite wrestler, Ranger Ross, and Hacksaw Butch Reed. It's coming up in a minute. Since of course, we have the WWE Network playing in the background, and technology is such great. But Ric Flair, what were your thoughts? I guess when we get to that match, I mean, Ranger Ross, Butch Reed. Yeah, I don't think so. It's like,
I mean, it's the second match on the card. I mean, it's built to elevate Butch Reed here. He would go on the team with Ron Simmons, and then they would go away, and then these two black guys come with masks on, and we're not supposed to think that they're Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, but it's clearly Butch Reed and Ron Simmons. That'd be the team of doom.
Hey, of course, the great Gary Michael Capetta. You can hear that, right?
Yeah.
And of course,
I love that music, though.
Yeah.
The music is dope.
Man, freaking Butch Reed was ripped. I mean,
I know.
And then Gary Capetta is a little older now, but that was, of course, 1989. So, and the great Ranger Ross. I think he was actually a real Ranger, but
He was.
Hailing from Acworth, Georgia, weighing 232 pounds, a true American, Ranger Ross.
Ranger Ross and the great, good old JR. Oh man, that was the match.
You know, he was trained by Ted Allen.
And I actually knew Ted Allen. I worked a couple of shows with him. He, he's
Was that for Southern Championship Wrestling?
I can't remember. It was such, and then of course Teddy Long's out there. He's got this. I guess he's been at this time. He's been fired.
Well, the whole thing where they did like sort of their version of the Danny Davis thing, where like he was the evil referee, and then they got banned and became a manager.
And speaking, I mean, not really much to say about the old Hacksaw Butch Reed Ranger Ross match. It was.
I wanted to see Butch Reed take on Lex Luger when I was like 9 years old, because I thought that would be a good match.
Speaking of a match that could have just been a fucking dark match or just been, not on the pay-per-view, was this next match. Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. taking on the great Captain Redneck Dick Murdoch. And
this match would have been
bull rope
awesome in
match.
1983.
Yeah, I mean.
But to have a bull rope match with no blood, because there's no blood on Turner TV, by the way, at this time. So why have a bull rope match like this? It went 454. Murdoch gets the win here, but then Bob Orton basically just tries to hang Dick Murdoch.
Yeah, and they I don't know if he's kind of sold it.
Why is Bob Orton with Gary Hart? That seems weird.
I mean, it's one of those.
Bob Orton in '89 can still work though. That's the whole thing. Like he lost a little bit of the I guess the charisma.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, but in '89 he's still a capable worker.
Yeah, I mean he's not not bad. And then oh man, let me play this interview real quick of a man that you're a fan of, who is actually a rock star.
The Freebirds has said by himself. Now, does that mean
Lance Russell's awesome, by
brass
the way.
knucks and everything else, Michael? Let me tell you exactly what it means. Lex Luger comes out here 2 times United States heavyweight champion and has the audacity to say that Michael P.S. Hayes ain't got what it takes to take what he's got. Let me tell you
Ew.
something, pal.
I don't know what that means, but
Late now. In just a matter of moments,
But I
Jack,
love the end of this interview.
You're gonna find out what I've got and just exactly what I'm gonna take from you, because I'm gonna squelch all the
Whoa,
skepticism
I don't know what that
and
means,
all
but-
the media like you that say that I don't have the credentials to do it on my own. I did everything in tag team wrestling, but not in singles. Today you'll see no Terry Gordy, no Buddy Roberts, just Michael P.S. Hayes. And remember this, Lex Luger, if it wasn't for people like you, there wouldn't be people like me. And now, back to the ring.
He almost cut. He cut almost the same exact word for word promo on the main event TV show before this.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, WCW production.
Oh, WCW. But it's one of those things. This next match, And I
The
think
dynamic news were over.
But
look at the crowd reaction.
But the one thing that I never noticed this, but I'm gonna play this audio clip of something. It's the great Paulie Dangerously. I did not know he said this back then.
My name just happens to be Paul E. Dangerously.
So, I mean, for people who are, not a aficionado of the old product, they think that that Paul Heyman, aka Paul A. Dangerously, started saying that in the WWE, but no, it was back in the
ECW too.
And what was your thought on this match? I mean, it was Johnny Ace.
The dudes had debuted a week before.
Mm-hmm.
And the Nashville crowd seemed to be very into the dudes. I don't know if they were into the dudes or they didn't like Paul E, which is probably the case here. But when we have the Samoan SWAT team who basically just destroyed the Midnight Express, actually Paul E mentions it on the mic that they destroyed the Midnight. That's why Cornette starts managing the dudes after this. But in an upset, the Dynamic Nudes got a victory over the SST, Fatu, and Samu, the future head shrinkers, and a pretty decent match here. It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I
don't like that Johnny Ace all too much, but that Shane Douglas can go.
Yeah, he's made a name of himself. I mean, he's been, except Johnny Ace, of course. Oh, then we have.
Didn't he marry like the Bella's mom? That's so weird.
Yeah, he's a stepfather.
That's so bizarre.
He's a stepfather of the Bellas. That's then the father-in-law of Daniel Bryan. So it's kind of funny how that
What's more weird, that or the Tully Blanchard Magnum TA thing?
Probably the Tully Magnum stuff because
they viewed it on TV.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they had true heat behind the scenes, but I'm going to play another clip. Of course, of the part that it just sounds like shit, and we'll see what you think of. Yeah, I mean, it's like it was definitely dubbed over. I mean, because it
was Freebird.
Yeah.
Oh God, that sounds awful.
Yeah, it's
with all the technology in the world today.
Yeah,
you can't make that sound any better.
No, but you notice that on the network, a lot of the stuff they when they dub over like the intro music, of course they can't. You can't hear the announcers, the color team, because it just sounds like crap. It's just I don't.
I understand the fact that Freebird is probably very expensive to get the license to. I get that and understand that. But damn, the WWE has a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, I mean, they at least get mine $9.99 a month, but I mean, you time that by a lot of, I don't know. It's just
10 million right now. 10 million subscribers they got.
They got a lot of subscribers. What were your thoughts on this match? I mean, did you think that Michael Hayes would win the U.S. title from the total package?
Fuck no. I mean, Michael Hayes is out there with Hiro Matsuda. He's part of the Yamakati Corporation, which is just the Horsemen, just with, they did this whole thing. And the late 80s, early 90s were really big on this, where we had these Japanese corporations buying out American companies and stuff like that. There was some controversy over in Seattle with Nintendo buying the Mariners, and they actually mentioned it like in RoboCop 3. They talk about it. It seems kind of it's very dated. It's a dated reference, and you had to be around in like 1989 to kind of get it. Mm-hmm. So the Japanese corporation buys the Horsemen. They lose Tully and Arn, and Michael Hayes was around doing stuff, so they put him in there too. So technically, Flair and Hayes are in the stable together, but that stable is basically gone after the show anyway, because we see what happens at the end of the not even at the end of the show, but in a couple of matches.
Yeah,
but Michael Hayes, to me, from what I understand, there are some issues here. So Michael Hayes and Kevin Sullivan, who were doing commentary at the time, respectively, on different shows, felt that them on commentary kind of hurt their heel heat in the ring. So they both basically at some point stopped doing commentary because you remember like Jesse Ventura eventually became beloved, right? Because he was on commentary. Same thing with Jerry Lawler. There were heel commentators that eventually became beloved.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm pretty sure they took them both off of commentary. They're all over the show, by the way. But this match, putting the belt on Hayes here, was just the lead to another Lex Luger turn down the road. Because Luger would turn heel when he beat Hayes. Like a couple of weeks later. It wasn't that long. It was on TV too.
Yeah, man. I'm not. What are your thoughts on Luger? I mean, we've gone over this and debated it.
People say I'm the world's foremost Dungeon of Doom apologist, but in addition to that, I'm a Lex Luger apologist. 89 was Luger's year. This is the peak of Luger. He's at his best here. He should have won the belt in the Bash 88. Everyone knows that. He goes to WWF and he sucks. This post-accident too. Don't forget he had that motorcycle wreck with his forearm and shit. But Luger here is fantastic. I mean, for the life of me, in both companies, WCW and WWF, they never, put the belt on him. And the only way they put the belt on him in WCW is they kind of just handed him the belt in the Bash 91 match. He never beat Flair for the belt, which to me hurt him overall in terms of his career. He never beat Flair.
Yeah, he was good when he was in the
because
horse.
They were always trying to get to Lex Luger and Sting as a top program. By the time they got to there, Luger was already trying to leave WCW.
Yeah.
I think they would have drawn pretty good in 90. Well, thing got the injury, so that's why they didn't do that. But I think they would have done good business in 89 with Sting and Luger on top.
Yeah, it was. I remember whenever when Barry Windham turned on Lex Luger,
Barry, no.
And then of course the Midnight Rider, which I don't know. Obviously there was a Dusty idea, and he thought that people would actually believe it. But do you think that would have gone up kind of gone on a different tangent? The Midnight Rider gimmick would have gone over nowadays.
You got to do it for comedy. You can't do it for you can't be serious. You can do it, but it has to be played for laughs.
But back then, did they think that people actually thought it was someone different?
Worked? No. They didn't think when they did it in Florida. Everyone in Florida knew it was Dusty Rhodes. The heels knew it was Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah,
but it was Dusty Rhodes outsmarting the heels because he just lost a loser leave town match, so he's gonna get his revenge. Right? That's the whole concept, right?
Yeah.
Some wrestling fans may thought I don't know who that is, but but anyone with more than 2 brain cells knew that was Dusty Rhodes or Barry Windham, Brian Pillman, Mr. America or Hulk Hogan, whatever. Yeah, but the whole concept was we're kind of bucking the system here and we're outsmarting the heels.
Yeah, and it was a terrible.
It worked the first time, and they tried it again, and it didn't work.
And speaking of, we're just going on a roll of fine matches here at Wrestle War 89.
This is a good pay-per-view.
Yeah, it is a good pay-per-view. But speaking of a match that I have no idea, was there heat?
What were you going to do with the Iron Sheik in 1989?
Not let him wrestle.
You're paying them. You have to let them wrestle. You got the best. You got the best outcome. Sting beats him in 2 minutes. Iron Sheik, former world champion, which he reminded Gary that he was a former world champion on the show. And Sting squashes a former world champion. You're elevating Sting here. It's fine.
Yeah,
They didn't go 15 minutes.
Thank God.
Perfectly acceptable wrestling.
They went a little bit less than the old Doug Gilbert Great Muta match, but speaking of a match that was actually really freaking good, Ric Flair, he wasn't the champion, facing the NWA champion, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the great Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. They had 3 judges at ringside, which included one of them was Terry Funk. What were your thoughts on this? It went 31 minutes and 37 seconds.
Well, it's weird that they put it here in this position on the show. I guess to make the fans believe that it could go 60. So they put it on early because the last match they had went 60. So I guess that was the concept. Now, which of the 3 matches are the best match? You think it's the first one, the second one, or this one? Now, most people will most likely say this one, but that's due to the angle, after the match. I prefer this one personally myself. I just felt that the crowd in New Orleans at the Superdome was dead, and there was, when you have that many people in a dome, that holds 80,000 people, 60,000 people, whatever it was. I don't know how they formatted the arena that night, but having an empty Superdome kind of kills all the heat from the crowd. But I actually prefer this match over the other two.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a good match. I mean, what were your thoughts on the angle with Terry Funk? I mean, he comes in there.
Well, there's two things here. We got to talk about how poorly Ricky Steamboat was booked. You had Bonnie Steamboat out there, pretending to be Miss Elizabeth, which is weird to me.
And their kid on that horse.
Yeah, and that kind of kills. Like, I understand he's the family man. I get that to a degree. But when you have Ric Flair coming out with 40 women, who are you going to like? Am I going to like the family man with his son coming out on a horse with a little guitar? Or am I going to gravitate towards Flair because he's surrounded with lovely ladies? Me
Ric
personally, loving the ladies like I do, I'm going to side with Flair.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Steamboat wasn't on his way out of NWA, was he? Or was he? He stayed around for a while longer, right?
He had a match for the U.S. belt with Luger. And I think he had some matches with Funk, but he goes back to WWF by pretty like sometime in '90.
Yeah, so I mean,
he's not around for too much longer after this, and I blame Bonnie Steamboat because she was his shoot manager at the time, and I think she submarined a lot of his career.
Huh.
No offense to Bonnie Steamboat.
I mean, don't offend anybody because you never have offended anybody on the show. To begin with, I mean,
Sam Houston's not on the show.
Oh, and ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome on the hotline Sam Houston. No, that would be weird.
The table spot's amazing.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. Even the interview, we have Ross come in the ring, he interviews Flair. Flair, promos leading up to this, it was pretty certain that he was going to turn babyface. You can tell by the interviews prior to this, and it just cements it with the promo he put over Ricky Steamboat. Told the crowd that he was the greatest NWA World Champion he ever faced, yada, yada, yada. Then Terry Funk comes out, and he challenges Flair. Flair kind of brushes him off, says he's not in the top 10, and you can see Terry getting a little upset, and he's like, "Oh, you don't think I'm good enough, Rick? You don't think I'm good enough? You don't think I'm a contender?" And Ric Flair, make sure that everyone knows that he's been in Hollywood hanging out with Sylvester Stallone instead of fighting for the world championship. Eventually, in a rate, Terry Funk just starts beating the hell out of Flair, and he takes that wicked pile driver on the table. Not the first table spot. Obviously, we've seen Savage and Ricky Morton. There was a table spot in WWF with Harley Race and Hulk Hogan. But, I don't know what happened. Like, Flair got his hands down on the table. Like, he wasn't wrapped around. I don't know if he was trying to protect himself or he was trying to make the move look more vicious. And, he got pile drived on the table, and that was it. And then they did a whole injury angle with Flair after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, it was a
and then, Terry Funk, watching the TVs after this, he would cut promos on Flair, and he begs Flair for Flair to stick it out for me again, which is uncomfortable for everyone.
Yeah, Terry Funk at this age or at this time, I'm not sure what his age was, but he was getting.
He was in his 40s.
He was getting a little older. I mean, would you have given him this spot? I mean, against the world champion. I mean,
yeah, because Terry Funk, number one, is a name. Terry Funk, other than a couple of really, really teeny short runs on Crockett TV, never necessarily worked for WCW. Spent a lot of time in Georgia, so he's familiar with the people of Atlanta. But Terry was in the movies. He did movies with Sylvester Stallone. Roadhouse comes out like 2 weeks after this, which they never promoted, by the way, which is silly. Roadhouse is a dope movie, by the way.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, but yeah, I would have gave Terry a run here, and Terry had an injury, so that had to cut the program short. But I would have had Funk beat Flair.
Yeah,
but you can't tell me that the I Quit match isn't iconic as all fuck, right? We all know this.
Yeah.
But they had a really good bash match too in the summer.
Yeah, he was a great wrestler. I mean, it's like I'm not an apologist of.
I love Terry. There's no reason to apologize for Terry Funk.
No, there is not.
He's in my list of top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time. Got to meet him in person one time, and when I met him, he told me two things. He was telling me how legit crazy Bob Backlund is. unsolicited. He's like, Alex, Bob Backlund, he's crazy. He just went off for like 5 minutes talking about how crazy Bob Backlund is. And then he told me that his brother was the greatest NWA World Champion of all time. So I believe him. So Dory Funk Jr. is the greatest NWA World Champion of all time because Terry told me.
I mean, if Terry told you that Sam Houston was the greatest Western States champion or whatever champion,
he knows more than me.
I mean, we got to get Sam Houston on the show and see.
He's probably in prison.
No, according to Wikipedia, you know how Wikipedia is the number one source for everything. That he was sentenced to 10 years in prison in August of 2005 for repeated DUI offenses, and according to his ex-wife, he had 2 DUI arrests per year for the past 10 years before he was sent to prison. And sadly, his house was destroyed during Hurricane Katrina.
That sucks.
He tried to he resurfaced in 2009. Tried to start a wrestling promotion called
Joey Janela versus Sam Houston dressed as nails.
That would be great. That I would pay money to see that. Hey, I mean, have you ever been the Central States, the NWA Central States champion? No. Have you ever been the Global Wrestling Federation TV champion, the Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight champion?
I'm pretty sure everyone's been the Global TV champion, by the way.
Well, probably. Yes, I'm sure. Have you been? No, well, you probably haven't been the Virginia Wrestling Association heavyweight champion, but
I was the international intergender hopscotch champion of 1996. So there.
Hey,
those are my credentials.
Hey, I was the 95 and 97 champion. So you were the one that held that title between.
Well, I've had gout ever since, so I can't.
I don't judge. But speaking of the next match, it was for the tag titles. The special referee for that event was the great Nikolai Volkov.
Doesn't work for the company, by the way.
Nikita Koloff. And
fresh from the AWA, buzz cut, kind of spiky hair Nikita Koloff, who doesn't work for WCW. He's just a special guest referee because he doesn't come back until 92.
Yeah, I mean, it's. What were your thoughts on Nikita being the referee? I mean, it's like, I don't know.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, I don't know about Nikita's drawing ability, in this area. I mean, if it was maybe Charlotte, it would have had a better, ovation. But he hasn't been anywhere. Weird to see him here, and there's no Dusty here. Dusty is in Florida right now running his own promotion, and the night before this, he fought Terry Funk. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, I don't understand the.
By the way, they stripped the tag belts after this show.
Yes, they did. I mean, speaking of Nikita, I mean, it's like
they stripped both tag belts after this show. There's no tag team champions in WCW.
The United States and the World Tag Team champions.
We don't see the United States belt for like another year. It goes away.
I mean, what were your thoughts on the U.S. belt?
That was stupid. I don't like that. That's too many tag belts. And if you add a 6-man, that's gross.
I mean, they did have the 6-man tag team.
I know they did. I know. And usually some sort of goofy team like JYD, Ricky Morton, and Tommy Rich. Fucking awful.
I'm going to bring up this for a second. It's
why is it not Dave Spivey and Steve Williams? That's a better team.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna. I'm of course rewatching the end of the Funk fiasco with Ric Flair. He hits. I mean, Flair is definitely.
That's a potato.
He's definitely, huh?
That first shot, the potato.
Yeah, he's definitely covering.
Wrestling fans, whether it be the NWA,
of course, then this guy interviewing Nikita Koloff, Joe Pedicino, he works in radio now. He used to have a 6-hour wrestling show.
I was so jealous of you guys down there that had that shit. That sounds awesome to me.
Yes, it was every Saturday night had WWE or WWF Global. AWA.
What was the one with the puppet? That sounds awesome. I don't see footage
Uncle Sammy Kent and Junior. Yeah, we'll have to. I met him a couple of times before he passed.
Can we get the puppet on the show?
Yeah, we can. We can have I have a puppet right here. Oh, Nikita Koloff. With his fake Russian accent.
Change his name to Nikita Koloff, by the way.
What the hell's up with the side? Like, I mean, it's like someone had a.
I don't know.
Right now, I see they're calling me for the ring.
All
Weird.
right, fans, we are going to the arena.
Very
for this
8
big World Tag Team
1989
title
Nikita
match.
Koloff.
And then of course, then they have these look like high school cheerleaders in the ring with Michael Rotundo.
Is Jerry Lawler at the show?
No, but Kevin Sullivan is. He looks like he's looking at this girl. I'm gonna have some fun with them tonight.
They toss Kevin Sullivan out. He gets sent back to the back, but then they come back out and they beat up Nikita Koloff at the end of the match, thus causing the reason why they get stripped of the belts.
I mean, what are your thoughts on this match? I mean, the Road Warriors, it was 89. They were.
I mean, I would have preferred seeing Dan Spivey and Steve Williams taking on the Road Warriors because that would have been a barn burner. It probably would have went 10 minutes and they would have been in and out. You know, the question becomes, as always, when you're dealing with the Road Warriors, like, how do you get belts off of them? And they always got to do some kind of kabuki finish or whatever. But, you know, Road Warriors they last another year and the WCW before they leave. So
Yeah, I mean,
they need an overhaul bad. I mean, not as bad as 1992 Legion of Doom. They needed an overhaul, but I think they needed something here.
Yeah, I mean, they needed something. I mean, it was.
This is not 1986 Road Warriors.
No, it was. This was definitely not Skywalker Scaffold Match Road Warriors versus the Midnight Express and Starrcade '86, which of course we covered here on Retro Wrestling Rewind. You can go back in the archives, and you can also watch the YouTube version. Just type
Mike
in.
Rotundo, by the way, underrated promo. When he has something good to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I'm not.
Not when he's Captain Mike with the sailor hat, 'cause that's weird.
Yes, he was a seaman. Yes, I know he was a seaman, but that's beside the point. What were your thoughts on this whole?
I thought you were going to go, speaking of seamen, and then say something about
Speaking
Missy
of
Hyatt,
seamen,
which is-
anyway, what were your thoughts on this whole like varsity club kind of thing about the colleges?
I like the concept of it. I don't know why Kevin Sullivan's there. To me, if Sullivan was going to be involved, I would have it be like a skull and crossbones society, Illuminati type shit, where you have all these guys that go to these prestigious colleges or whatever, and they're getting like with the robes and they're getting spanked with the paddle and that kind of shit. That's what I thought it was, but it was never like that. Or at least never presented on television.
No,
like
I mean, because it had Mike Rotundo from Syracuse. They had Oklahoma with Dr. Death Steve Williams. We had Rick Steiner from Michigan. It's just I don't know.
Where's Dan Spivey from? Florida?
I don't know. He was from some loony bin. I don't know. I mean, I think he was actually from Florida, but he wasn't really into that like kind of gimmick. He didn't have the varsity jacket. I mean, it's like really did they like get a varsity jacket from Syracuse and make, or they, it's just, I mean,
Was it his old one?
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like back in, I've heard some stories about
like that has to be a Jim Ross thing. That
Yeah.
has to be a Jim Ross
I mean,
thing.
and speaking of, kind of shenanigans and like no budget, I mean, back in the old NWA days, WCW, when they had the Shockmaster, that whole fiasco, they didn't even know what the hell the gimmick was going to be. They went on to like Michael's or, one of those, the stores where you can buy all the stuff, and they put that crap on a Star Wars helmet or Stormtrooper helmet. Yeah. I mean, it's just, if people knew the shit that wrestling went through just to.
And eventually they made him a construction worker.
Oh God, construction
Yeah.
worker. He should be in the village. See, look, and of course in this match, Dan Spivey's beating the hell out of Nikita Koloff.
You think they would want to do a feud later on? Nope.
Nope. They will, of course. Why would they? Why would who was booking at this time?
I think it was the committee
the
of
committee.
Ric Flair, Eddie Gilbert, and Jim Ross.
I heard Ric Flair hated these meetings. He liked being on the committee, but he hated these meetings.
He's an underrated booker, by the way, because every time he books, you can tell that he's booking because he's in the main event with Ricky Steamboat.
The funny thing is, you always know the booker is the booker. If the booker's the champion, like an independent promotion, that's never good because they always make themselves the champion. But I don't know.
Make myself a jobber.
Yeah, you're gonna make you'll be the head of the promotion to be like, yeah, I'm gonna be enhancement talent. You know what?
Not for nothing. I think most bookers should be competent in commentary and probably should be on commentary because at the very least they can explain their bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
like Vince did it forever.
Yeah,
so did Bischoff.
Yeah, Bischoff. Yeah. What were your thoughts on Bischoff?
I like Bischoff. Bischoff's a fucking genius.
Yeah. Well,
I think he's a genius.
Uh-huh.
That his ego got so big and he started fucking up.
Yeah.
But once we talk about 1994 WCW and some of the movies he's made, and the ability for him to exist and even thrive in that culture at TBS is amazing.
Yeah.
Like no one else was able to make WCW anything. He was able to do that. So I give him a lot of credit there. But by the time we get to 1998 and his ego gets out of control, he starts making mistakes, starts fucking up.
Yeah, I mean, what I don't understand is, let me do the intro of this next match. Why the hell did they make the United States Tag Team title match the main event of pay-per-view?
I don't know. It's very weird.
Yeah.
I'm sure Rick Steiner and Eddie Gilbert didn't get main event pay. That's for sure.
Probably not. Nope.
Like the whole timing for this show was off. I don't know if they thought they were going to run out of time.
Yeah, I mean,
Missy Hyatt doing her very best Miss Elizabeth impression too.
Yeah, I mean,
not that Missy Hyatt, she's not a heel here, so looking very lovely.
I'm a fucking Eddie Gilbert mark. I mean, he was freaking great in Florida, in championship wrestling from Florida. I mean, he was just great wherever he went, and God, I wish he was still around. I mean, he would have made a great.
Really good,
He would have had a
run to Continental, Memphis, ECW early on.
By the first lady of professional wrestling, Missy Hyatt.
And of course, a little known fact, and you probably knew this, but some people may not know that Rick Steiner is he's on the school board of Cherokee County here in Georgia. So
I don't even know what that means.
like he makes decisions about the kids.
No, that's gross.
Well, no,
Missy Hyatt, by the way, is a
hot.
brilliant wrestling mind. By the way,
Yes, and she is smoking hot.
Follow her. Yes. In addition to that, she actually has some really like fantastic insights in terms of professional wrestling. Obviously, she was mentored and schooled by Eddie Gilbert, Jake Roberts, and like if you follow her on Twitter, she's probably like one of the biggest wrestling fans. She keeps up with the current product, tweets about it, and gives really solid opinions about everything. I'm amazed because she is nothing like the character she portrays on TV.
No, I mean
That's a shoot.
Is that a shoot, brother?
That's a shoot.
And I mean, and then of course Dan Spivey, Kevin Sullivan come in there like a
I want to see Dan Spivey versus Ric Flair. How come we never got that match?
poor booking.
I blame Jim Herd.
Do you blame everything on Jim Herd?
I mean, I give Jim Herd credit on some stuff, like Ruse, which sounds stupid, but they're trying to get any kind of advertising here, and you have to put Ruse on your fucking ring post. Fucking do that shit.
Yeah, I mean,
during the Jim Herd era, I'm pretty sure they got the WCW trading cards. They were shitty, but they got them. I'm pretty sure that comic book came out around the same time too, maybe. The WCW Marvel comic.
Yeah, I think
it's awesome, by the way.
You're a big fan of that?
Oh, it's fucking ridiculous. It's just a shitty comic book, but it's awesome nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not.
They have those action figures. I know you're a big fan of the WCW action figures. They have Doom wearing sneakers on them. I don't know why, but they do.
I mean, I am a big fan of the old
Irish whip.
Not the vibrating ones from '95 because those are weird and gross. Don't get the giant vibrating action figure from like 1995 WCW because it's off-putting.
Yeah, that's
it's gross.
It's gross, but kind
So
of.
by the way, they vacate both belts here. United States Tag Team Championship goes away for about a year. The NWA Tag Team Championship gets vacated, and they have a tournament later on. After the show, Luger turns heel, wins back the belt. Flair feuding with Terry Funk for the foreseeable future. Sting is ascending. Steamboat is descending. The dudes would ascend slightly, get Cornette as a manager, and then they would get beat to death. Dick Murdoch does Dick Murdoch things. Bush Reed gets repackaged eventually as one half of Doom. Muda's on the way up, although he gets jobbed out at the end of the year during the Starrcade '89. Ranger Ross does Ranger Ross type things. Bob Orton is gone. The SST is awesome, and they would eventually have that War Games match, which I believe it's the SST and the Freebirds taking on who's Midnight Express and who else? I forget.
I don't know.
You know.
I don't know.
You were at that show.
Yeah. Was he taking it against Sam Houston?
I think it's Bash. Is it Bash 89? Is that show? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garvin's in the Freebirds, which it spends that's definitely the end of the Freebirds in terms of being good. Is whenever Jimmy Garvin comes around.
Is that whenever they became rock stars?
Dude, it's weird. It's fucking weird. They became a band. And I don't like that. It's just like, why can't you just be like tough dudes from Atlanta?
But the best part of the Freebirds is their manager. It wasn't Sir Oliver Humperdinck. He came out.
That Humperdinck and that little Richard Marley. Rocky King.
I don't understand Rocky King. We're gonna do a show all about enhancement talent.
35 minutes on Rocky King.
That sounds like
By the way, it was the Road Warriors at Midnight Express and Dr. Death Steve Williams with Jim Cornette and Paul Ellering, who defeated the fabulous Freebirds of Jimmy Garvin, Michael Hayes, and Terry Gordy, and the Samoan SWAT team. So that was the Bash 89 War Games. Main event of that show was Terry Funk taking on McFarlane for the belts.
I think your rant on Sam Houston and all the other stuff, I think that should be a Patreon exclusive, because, of course, if you want to become a Patreon of Retro Wrestling Rewind, just type in the keyword Retro Wrestling Rewind on Patreon. We have many tiers. We have the Western Stage Heritage Champion. We have the NWA TV title champion. The TV champion, we have the national champion, and of course, the granddaddy of them all. We have the world heavyweight champion. Before we get going and leave you for episode number 11, going into episode number 12 next week, how can people watch your YouTube channel?
What's the next show anyway?
The next show is actual AWA Super Sunday. It happened April 24th of 1983. Buddy. This is the caption. I'm watching it on the network right now. Super Sunday.
I have a T-shirt that says "Fuck Lord James Blears" on it.
It says Super Sunday presents exciting wrestling action featuring Nick Bockwinkel defending the AWA World Heavyweight title against Hulk Hogan.
I heard you were at that show. Is that true?
I was. I've been into all the shows. I'm that old.
Like Vladimir, the super fan. Remember him from WWF?
No. Remember the crying wrestling fan?
I figured this, right?
Uh-huh.
A lot of time when Ric Flair would come into the ring, he would point to someone in the front row and call them Fat Boy.
It was me.
I figured it was the same Fat Boy all the time.
Mm-hmm. It was me.
To me, that's hilarious for some reason. I don't know why I find that so funny. But
I know. But
shut up, Fat Boy.
But speaking of things that are
you want to follow me on Twitter?
That are ridiculous.
RW Games Presents on Twitter. You can subscribe to my channel on YouTube, which is Retro Wrestling Games Present. Just type it in, you'll find it. Great channel. We just did Saturday Night Slam Master. We just reviewed that game. Mike Haggard is the man, by the way. Just want to let everybody know that.
When are you gonna invite me on the program?
Yeah, you get a spot. You definitely get a spot.
Oh, thanks. And of course, if people want to follow us here on Twitter, it's the RW Rewind on Twitter and the Retro Wrestling Rewind on YouTube. There's a Retro Wrestling Rewind, but there's not a The Wrestling.
It's like one Japanese match on it.
Retro Wrestling Rewind.
Gabashi versus Misawa.
We have almost every one of our episodes up. I mean, as you know, each week we get a new episode up on YouTube. They lag behind the normal program because it takes a little longer than just some audio. You got to put some video and some other stuff, and it's one of those things that it's awesome. I mean, are you having a good time putting those together? I mean, I
think we give a selection for people who just consume their audio on YouTube. It's a way for people to discover us, and hopefully we can drive some traffic back to the podcast, would it be Stitcher or SoundCloud. I use Podcast Addict myself because I have an Android, but that's neither here or there.
You have an Android. Well, hey, see, folks, if you're listening to us on an Android, you can download that podcast player. I mean, I don't really care how you listen to the show, as long as you listen to the show.
Leave a review too. Don't be a jerk.
Yeah, I mean,
if you think I said something stupid, just call me an idiot or something.
I mean, you could call him an idiot, call me an idiot, but just give us 5 stars, or how many ever stars you can give. Give the highest number, because folks, it's podcast analytics and all that shit. I don't understand it, but I mean, according to some people, it actually means something, and I think down the road it will mean something. But for the great Alex G. Folks, if you want to watch our show or watch the show that we're going to be reviewing next week, it's AWA Super Sunday. Just type it in on YouTube or on the WWE Network.
It's there.
Watch it. We're going to be reviewing it next.
I get to talk about one of the scummiest guys alive, Rock and Roll Buck Zumhofe.
We're going to be talking about that next week. But as always, I am David Fine. If you want to hear a great interview with probably the world's greatest ring announcer that I actually modeled my own ring announcer career, Gary Michael Capetta, that's online right now, online at iTunes under Retro Wrestling Rewind. It's a great interview. He has so much knowledge, and of course, on that version or that edition of.
By the way, people are going to ask why I'm not on the interview. The reason why I'm not on the interview is because for me to do interviews, I would sound like Chris Farley from the old SNL sketches. And I would say something to the effect like, "Hey, remember that time you were an announcer for Wrestle War '89?" And he'd be like, "Yeah." I'm like, "That was cool."
Yeah,
that's how it would sound like.
Yeah, I mean, you may or may not ever hear Alex G on interviews because it's just, it's.
I might show. I'll show up for Dr. D.
Oh, he's gonna and the Sam Houston interview.
I want to know if he ever found the woman in San Francisco.
I have no idea what that means, but
okay, it's a deep cut. But anyone who watches YouTube on a consistent basis will understand exactly what I'm talking about.
So, like I said, for Alex G, I am David Fine. We will back here next week, episode 11, where we cover AWA's Super Sunday here, exclusively on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, RetroWrestlingRewind.com. Don't forget our Patreon page, patreon.com/Retro Wrestling Rewind. Become a Western States champion, TV champion, a national champion, or fuck, even be a world champion and come on the show every 30 days like a true champion does. We'll see you back here next week.
I'm going to your stupid, but at least you don't want to be. This ain't no